Welcome back to another This Day in History, a segment here on The Real Leel Show, where we talk about a sporting event or a major event that has took place on this very day. The goal of this segment is to educate the listener as well as myself on things that have impacted the world as we know it, and also for some people to relive what they already experienced. On this day, January 24, 2009, welterweight boxer Sugar Shane Mosley knocked out Antonio Margarito in 9 rounds to gain the welterweight title. If they let Shane Mosley fight, Antonio Margarito should be arrested. Margarito would put Shane in a pin box. Those were the exact words of boxing promoter Leel DeBella in September of 2008, as Shane Mosley, who was once a boxing star, was out of his prime, barely getting over Ricardo Mayorga. Yet despite his age of 37 years old, Mosley agreed to fight Antonio Margarito, who was one of the hottest names in the sport, having came off a surprising, destructive win over Miguel Cotto. At that time, Miguel Cotto was undefeated prior to losing to Margarito. Cotto, ironically, defeated Sugar Shane Mosley prior to that, back in 2007. Heading into the matchup in 2009, Margarito was the heavy favorite, being the younger fighter who brought relentless pressure. However, this fight wouldn't go down without controversy.
Surgieron los problemas del entrenador de Mosley que no podía dar 2 vueltas en el mismo tape y que no podía dar, que nomás era
distraction about the tape on the wrist. You know, that could be the fake out. I'll show you this to give you something else. So I checked the padding, and when I checked the padding, it felt hard. So then the commissioner felt that, he said, that feels pretty hard. The commissioner flipped it open, and a block fell out of it.
We were all asking ourselves, what happened? What is it?
Prior to the fight, Mosley's trainer, Nassim Wichison, noticed something on the hand wraps of Margarito. It was described as wet pads in the wrapping. The pads were taken to be investigated and were found to contain gypsum, which could form plaster of Paris if used with moisture. New wraps were applied and the fight went on as scheduled, as Sugar Shane Mosley went on to beat the living crap out of Margarito, dropping the Mexican fighter late in the 8th round before his corner doing a towel in the 9th round. The controversy about Margarito having got caught cheated with his hand wraps grew many to speculate that he may have used similar illegal wraps in his previous fights, especially against Miguel Cotto. Margarito and his head trainer, Javier, went on to be suspended for 1 year from the sport. Upon coming back into the sport, Margarito was never the same, ultimately getting destroyed by Manny Pacquiao 13 months later from that fight, rematching Miguel Cotto, in which Cotto was able to dominate Margarito, getting his revenge. This fight that took place today in sports history on January 24, 2009, Sugar Shane Mosley versus Antonio Margarito, was a marquee event because of the controversy pre-fight, which has changed the way how modern hand wrapping in the sport is done and supervised pre-fight.
Favre sprints to his right, throws back across the middle, and he's intercepted. Porter. The return by Porter, and he's brought down with 7 seconds left.
On this day in sports history, January 24, 2010, the New Orleans Saints reached their first Super Bowl after defeating the Vikings in the NFC Championship game. Drew Brees led the league that year in completion percentage and touchdown passes, throwing for 4,388 yards. He had a wider way to spread his accurate throws to, with wideouts Marcus Colston, Lance Moore, and Robert Meacham, and running backs Pierre Thomas and Reggie Bush, and tight end Jeremy Shockey. This game was a historic game because it ended up being the last NFL game quarterback Brett Favre played in. It was also followed by controversy with the Bountygate scandal. The Saints going to the Super Bowl was also momentum, or should I say monumental, because 5 years earlier, Hurricane Katrina ravaged New Orleans. The worst natural disaster in its history destroyed 70,000 homes and displaced many more. In the middle of collapsed roofs, flooded buildings, and lingering power outages that shuttered local businesses for 10 months, it was the Saints football team playing their first game in the Superdome since the hurricane that got the city back on track. The Saints won that game against the Falcons 22-3 on Monday Night Football. This win uplifted the local businesses in the surrounding area, which led the Saints years later on this day to go on to beat the Vikings in a close NFC Championship game that went into overtime. Brett Favre was constantly pressured by the physical Saints defense. With 7 seconds left and the Vikings in field goal range with a chance to win, Favre threw across his body in the middle of the field and was intercepted by Tracy Porter. The Saints will go on to win in overtime with a game-winning field goal, and Sean Payton and Drew Brees would also go on to defeat the Colts, led by quarterback Peyton Manning, to win their first ever Super Bowl, delivering the city a much-needed championship. The area of Louisiana, with the help of the Saints team, got the city back on track in sports, as the 2013 Super Bowl was held there in the Superdome, and the NFL has invited the city to apply to host in 2019 and 2020. Also, the Super Bowl was there last year. You also got college football playoff games and bowl games, significant bowl games that were in the Superdome as well. On this day in sports history, January 24, 2010, the New Orleans Saints reached their first Super Bowl after defeating the Vikings in the NFC Championship game. Sports, politics, conspiracy theories, we are here to give you our unique perspectives on things happening in the world. It's the one and only The Real Leel on The Real Leel Show.